So your history was with Mercedes.
Yeah.
And I was told that you were really high up in Mercedes on like the tech side of things, but I never really got the story from you.
Yeah.
Like I was somebody told me that you were like one of the only certified techs like around to do like certain things because you have to get like levels. I don't know how dealerships really operate, I guess.
Yeah, there's so that was through Mercedes-Benz. They're one of the best things about Mercedes-Benz is the training available to the technicians, online training, and then they have a training center in Jacksonville. There's regional. There's 3 depending on in the country where you go get your certifications for like if a new car comes about, they'll make a class for it and you go up there for a few days, give you ins and outs or an engine or if it's a hybrid or whatever the system may be. And I was I'm intrigued by knowledge. I like learning, and then cars, obviously, I'm into that.
Yeah,
so
German engineering is pretty good.
And then as a technician, like you have to diagnose and then repair the car, and a technician's flat rate. So you get paid basically on how quickly or how well you can diagnose a car and fix it. And then if it comes back, you don't get paid to fix it because you didn't diagnose it correctly. And you have all this training available to you. So it made sense to me to learn how to do my job better.
Yeah.
And you got paid to go to training.
And you were quicker at doing it so you could make more money.
Yeah, and you're learning more. And the technology with Mercedes is above or ahead of any other car manufacturer.
There's bugs in here. It's a kind
Mosquitoes.
It's kind of a frustrating thing.
Yeah.
At Florida, there's bugs in buildings, so yeah, it's just kind of part of it, guys. So Jay had a couple get them.
So the technology was always intriguing to me because and it's funny, like any of the self-driving systems or a lot of things you see on cars now, like in commercials and stuff, and it's like, oh yeah, like we did that 10 years ago.
Mercedes.
In a car. Yeah, they just don't really advertise it, or it's not on like all of the models. So you look at like a current like loaded S-Class, it's probably like 10 years ahead of other models. Maybe some of the other higher end companies.
Well, the people just buy them regardless. Like this is
they don't even know. Like just the other day, Tia, she showed me like an ad. There was a funny Mercedes commercial, and I remembered it from training a long time ago. And the commercial never aired in U.S. It was just in Germany, and it was like just white gloves, and they had a chicken, and there was 3 of them, and there was like music playing, and they were moving the chicken bodies, and the chicken head just stays still. Because that's what chickens do. Like their head stays still.
They're pretty what are they?
Like a gyroscope kind of thing. Well, what the commercial was for was magic body control was the name of the system. And a certain option on the S-Class, if you had the hydraulic suspension, was it used the forward-facing cameras to scan the road surface and adjust the shock at each corner for the imperfections in the road surface. Wow. So the chicken's head was you in the car.
Yeah.
And like we would like turn like no way this works, right? And like hit a speed bump with only like the right side of the car and drive over it like 5 miles an hour, and then like turn the system on and drive over it, and like you didn't feel the speed bump.
Huh. See, yeah.
And like
I guess I don't understand. I guess I don't know much about Mercedes because they don't
advertise.
They just don't brag about.
There's no commercials for it.
Yeah, like BMW and like Audi would be like pushing that kind of stuff all over.
Yeah, like the infrared cameras in the S-Classes for night driving.
Yeah, I've
put
seen
up
that
on a
before.
screen, and like just so many. There was just the pre-safe, like I think after 22, if the car detected an accident was going to happen and the airbags were going to deploy, the sound system emits a noise that closes your eardrum so you don't get injured from the airbag explosion.
Wow, that's weird. It's a creepy. That's like such a weird feature, but I mean, it's great. It's a great idea. Of course, who wouldn't want that?
Why wouldn't we have the ability to do that? Like clever programming. Like we know the sound wave that closes the eardrum. The airbags are going to be dynamite exploding in the car.
Yeah,
let's protect our passengers' eardrum.
So you were just getting more certifications because they kept offering them to you?
Oh, well, yeah, basically. I guess I got off on that.
No, I mean, it was
like I've been out of it. Like there's so many interesting systems in those cars, and now I'm behind now. Like I've been out of the dealership since what year was that? 3 years ago?
Yeah, Real Street took you out of it.
21. Yeah, Jay talked me into leaving.
Yeah, Jay convinced you to get out of it into performance cars.
Which I always loved performance, and I was working on cars every night. Like I'd work on cars all day, and I would go home and work on cars. So
yeah, you were building trans for a long time.
Building trans, doing side jobs, working on my own cars, like friends' cars, and I just I did very well for myself as a technician, and I enjoyed it, was very stable. And I knew I didn't want to open my own shop because I wouldn't be able to enjoy it because I, would need a business person, all the things that go along with owning a shop.
Most shop owners don't actually enjoy racing.
Right, exactly. And I saw that and I enjoyed racing. And I was like, well, I'm making as much money as I want to make working in the dealership, so I might as well stay working in the dealership.
Yeah.
But there's also an end to that because as a flat rate technician, age will eventually catch you because in the dealership you see the people that are 50, 60 that are still working as a technician and you're not really enjoying life at that point. And the really only position to go from there is to like a shop foreman role, which is possible, which I would have been in that position, no problem. I was a team leader and could have did that easy. But at that point, you're not flat rate anymore, you're salary, and you'll make less money than the technicians are making. So it's kind of like going the wrong way.
Yeah.
Financially.
But the interesting thing about like a Mercedes or something is I feel like a tech like Mercedes is really sought after, even from like one of those like higher end performance shops, or even like you see it all the time in like Ferrari and like those kind of guys where they specialize in like a certain car and like all of them in the country, like an SLS or something.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I work on all of them in the country because like nobody else knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
So I feel like that kind of happens in like a performance, in like a, it's not like a Chevy where it's like, oh, I do like.
Yeah, you have an easier way to get into a performance shop if you wanted to work on cars.
Or even like specifically Mercedes, because like there's so many like high end shops that work on that kind of stuff, and it's such a different like dealership feel almost, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I never even like explored that. Like,
I guess there wouldn't really need to be.
Like I was doing good there. I had all the factory tools and training. Like, I mean, the systems, like if you want to know the torque of the zip tie holding the harness on, like you could find that information.
Do you still have the tools?
Well, I still have like the hand tools, like any of like the factory tools, the dealership had. Like the specialty tools, there was a tool room, like if it required, if you did a job a lot, you would end up buying it for yourself so you didn't have to walk to the tool room. So yeah, I have probably like 3 giant boxes full of tools that like I had specifically. My toolbox was pretty limited. It was the tools I needed to do the job. Like the wrench set wasn't even complete. I had more tools at home than I had at the dealership. Like it would only be the sizes that I needed to work on those cars because that was what I did, there.
Yeah, there's only select cars. There's only select sizes that you really need.
Yeah, like you're working on a Honda, you just need a 10 and a 12, maybe a 17, you're good. You can take the whole car apart. So Mercedes are a lot of inverted torques and things like that. So it was the same way. Like the like people would be mad at me because I would never buy a set. I would just be like, no, I'm just going to buy this one.
Yeah, all the Snap-on guys. What do you mean you don't need every size?
Yeah, right.
Come on.
Yeah, I don't need a 20 millimeter socket. That's does not exist. Like, don't sell me this sock.
You gotta buy them though. I used to work around a lot of people that would like buy any tool, like any specialty thing, because like the Snap-on guy, shiny stuff.
Oh yeah, no, that's definitely real life. But I have a lot of tools. I still definitely do.
Yeah, I'm pretty limited on tools. I feel like I have just what I need, and I try to avoid having more than necessary, because I'd rather have cheap tools that I can like cut or like bend if I have to.
Sure.
I've done a lot of that where it's like, I mean, you probably have a few custom tools for your car that's like, oh, if I don't have this 15 that's only this big or something, for some reason, if you got T4 turbos, they're not easy to get on.
Exactly.
They designed them, but for some reason they didn't think about the nut. I feel like. I love you, Precision, but like...
There's definitely a few where it's like you have to start the nut as you lower it down or something, like the housing down, like because the stud would hit it and there's no way you would ever get a bolt in it.
So you knew it was going to be there. Like they knew when they designed it was going to be there, so I don't know how that happened.
Definitely didn't care.
It's just like, you'll figure it out.
You'll figure it out.
You'll figure it out.
But anyway, we'll get back on the subject. So I started with Mercedes in 2009. I was working on cars already. I started working on cars when I was 16 in high school. I started in a shop. I was working full time, like alongside of high school, like OJT, leave, go to work. Racing my Mustang. And then I remember like graduation happened and everyone's talking about like going to college and stuff. And I'm racing my Mustang, working 50 hours a week at this shop, buying car parts.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I guess I'm going to work on cars. This is
probably
cool.
Felt super rich.
I was like making $30,000 a year or something, like working full time as a mechanic. It was doing okay.
Yeah, in high school, that's like
like I had like moved out when I was like basically like end of high school. Like moved out, got an apartment, I think it was like my 18th birthday when I could sign the lease.
Still in the Tampa area?
No, I was in Fort Pierce,
Okay.
Florida, Port St. Lucie.
Okay.
And did that, worked in that shop for a few years, met a guy, Frank Aquero, who used to come in. It was a Meineke and exhaust shop, but did other general mechanic work too. And he'd bring in hot rods that he was building, get exhaust made. So I started like hanging out with him, go over. He had a shop behind his house. And I would go over there after work. I would go over there and work with him at night because he always worked at night because it was cooler out. And that's where like I learned a lot about race car stuff. He had like a blown alcohol Chevelle that like I was the clutch guy. And he had a dragster and he had a bunch of cool cars and he built engines. Like
Interesting.
in his garage, and I would like just work with him at night.
Yeah.
Like, learning from him, go to races with him on the weekend.
So you did learn the clutch stuff early on.
I did, like the slipper clutch is that everyone, it's the same thing.
Yeah, it's not a new concept.
No, it was a big block with a 1471 blower on alcohol with a 5-speed Lenco and a triple disc slipper clutch, and yeah,
it's really not a new concept on that deal. They've been around for quite some time. They're just new on the T56.
They're new on the T56. They are in the lever style. They do work differently than those, but same concept. But I was like, I got my. That's why I don't stick shift race. I was like 18, and I was like, no, that's enough of that. We don't need it.
You were done right there.
I'm like, this is hot. Like, this is the worst. That's why I got that job. It was the worst job of the car for sure.
You've done more to take stick shift cars out of existence than you have to help the stick shift.
Took the fastest one in the country at the time. I was like, oh, we're gonna go ahead.
Yeah, you've done negative help for the community.
Oh, no.
I don't know if the stick shift guys have realized that.
Yeah, I don't think I even realized that. I don't have hatred towards stick shifts. It's just a lot of work, and I don't want to do that anymore.
No, that's fair. I mean, I wouldn't. I don't blame you at all.
So I was working for him, and then I ended up going to work for him full time, and that was fun. We just did race car stuff, but I wasn't making a lot of money, and that's when I talked to my uncle, actually. My uncle had a transmission shop in Pompano, and I would go to work for him in the summers, like before I was 16, at his shop. And he's like, if you want to work on cars, you got to go to Mercedes. Like you'll make the most money as a mechanic than like all this other stuff. And he owned his own shop, like a trans shop.
And he was like, go work for Mercedes.
He's like, go work for Mercedes.
Huh.
So I listened to him.
Yeah.
And there was a Mercedes store like 2 doors down from the Meineke shop that I used to work at. And my friend PJ in high school was still my good friend, or is, and his girlfriend, wife now, dad, if this all makes sense, was the shop foreman there. So I felt like I had a little connection. And like I was an independent shop PJ worked at a Chevy dealership, and like I was like intimidated by dealership techs, or it seemed very formal or structured compared to like independent shops, Yeah,
just like the random.
And I was like, I don't know, like I had never even sat in a Mercedes at this point in my life, but I was a good technician. I've worked on cars for a long time. I felt like I was pretty good. And I went in there and interviewed, and they're like, yeah, we'll hire you. So I was like, cool.
Yeah, I feel like even now, most of these dealerships are begging for techs.
Yeah, so the interview process now is pretty easy. They hand you a mirror, and they're like, if you can fog this with your breath,
you're qualified. To now work on these.
Oh, you don't have tools?
Cars.
Oh, you can borrow so-and-so's tools to get going.
Don't worry. There's going to be a guy that'll come around.
Yeah, don't worry. This tech right here is going to train you, and we're not going to pay him to train you, but we're going to make him train you.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, until you're good enough. But
just give him a Red Bull every day. He'll be happy.
There's a pizza party on Friday. We're going to buy you guys lunch.
It's even funny you call them Mercedes stores. I feel like that's a unique thing to Mercedes, that they call their dealership stores. Where like it's like, oh, you go to the Chevy dealer, but you go to the Mercedes store. Like there's like it's like a level of Mercedes prestige.
It's just built into me. I've drank the Kool-Aid a lot. So,
oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure they have to, really drag you in there, keep you away from other dealers.
Yeah, they started this brand immersion thing 10 years ago or so, and everyone in the dealership, you don't have to go to it, but you have to go to it.
Yeah.
And you go to Alabama, and you go to the road course up there, and then they have a manufacturing plant in Alabama, Mercedes does, and you tour the plant, and you go, and you get to like ride off-road in a car, and it's brand immersion, but it's like the Kool-Aid big time, like they put you up in a nice hotel. And
guys, thank you for tuning in to the Bogetti Clips YouTube channel. For the full podcast, check us out on Bogetti Studios YouTube and all your audio platforms. Also, hit that subscribe button to not miss out on any of the new Bogetti clips coming up.